But tonight, it's late at night, Israel is in a fight for their lives.
2022 had been the deadliest year for Palestinian children killed by Israeli occupation forces in the occupied West Bank in 15 years. But did you even know about it? Did you know that in 16 months of genocide in Gaza, Israel has managed to halve the life expectancy in Gaza?
Israel bombed a Catholic church in Gaza, and that an entire population is being wiped out.
Lots of people say Israeli forces shouldn't be allowed to take cameras and phones into combat. I'm glad that they are allowed to, because it allows the world to witness what's happening.
You see huge blocks getting blown up, universities getting blown up.
The fact that they've been able to rig these buildings up with explosives shows very clearly that there's no current threat from those buildings.
There's no justification for destroying a structure if the enemy isn't in it.
Where one thinks it's not just personal lack of discipline, it's an institutional lack of discipline.
Civilian property, it's banned. And if you do enough of it, it's a war crime.
Israelis don't want to know, and many Israelis don't want to know what is going on inside Palestine. It's a terrible human rights persecution that is far transcends what any outsider would imagine. And there are powerful political forces in America that prevents any objective analysis of the problem in the Holy Land. I think it's accurate to say that not a single member of Congress with whom I'm familiar would possibly speak out and call for Israel to withdraw to their legal boundaries or to publicize the plight of the Palestinians. And that is added on to by the very effective work of the American-Israeli group called AIPAC.
In the weapons in a war, when you fight, people die. In Iran, you can see in the war in June, they will literally target a single apartment with a drone strike. It's so precise, it's so targeted. They're doing assassination strikes with drones. They will hit one apartment. Forget about the whole building and the whole city. And if you're the most sophisticated military with precision-guided munitions, how are you accidentally destroying 90% of the buildings and committing 100,000 civilian casualties and shooting children and people getting aid? At that point, it's intentional.
I just think we need to kill them, every one of them, and that's it.
You need to destroy their offspring to prevent them from creating more offspring.
Former Israeli president claims Queen Elizabeth saw Israelis as terrorists. Queen Elizabeth II never visited Israel during her 70-year reign. And right before she took over the crown, that is when the Israelis started, the Zionists, who were the future Israelis, started committing tons of acts of terrorism in order to get the creation of Israel going.
Israeli Defense Force, Israel's well-funded and high-tech army, is the most moral army in the world. That is, if you believe the branding.
צה"ל הוא הצבא המוסרי ביותר בעולם.
The most moral army in the world.
The IDF is a moral army.
The most moral.
The IDF does more to safeguard the rights of civilians than any other army in the history of warfare.
But apart from the allegations of war crimes in Gaza, the attempts to paint it as an animal-friendly, queer-friendly, religiously tolerant military institution, the history of the IDF says more about it than its social media image. Before the formation of the State of Israel in 1948, and before there was an Israeli army, there were 3 underground Zionist militias. But together, they terrorized Palestinian villages, committed acts of violence, terrorism, and ethnic cleansing, and executed bombings and assassinations against the British to force them to give up control of the land. They blew up hotels in Jerusalem, embassies in Europe, and assassinated a UN mediator. All of this happened before 1948, because after Israel was officiated as a state, these 3 groups would be brought together to create the IDF, and their militia leaders would go on to form Israel's government, become politicians, ambassadors, and prime ministers. And their dark history would be forgotten.
War is horrible, so why did the Palestinians initiate this war on October 7th?
Well, they didn't. They didn't.
This war has been going on for 75 years. Israel initiated it in 1948 by ethnically cleansing 750,000 people. This is what you need to understand. The people in Gaza, over 80% of them are refugees from a place called Majdal Asqalan in what is now southern Israel, in a city called Ashkelon. And they were dragged from their homes and driven from their homes, placed in prison camps, barbed wire prison camps, and then dumped in trucks in 1950 into the Gaza Strip where they would be permanently warehoused. And then Israel proceeded to move Jewish refugees and Russians into Ashkelon to prevent them from ever coming back. So this didn't come out of a vacuum. You're not going to be able to hold people under siege, cut them off from the world, and then expect them to just play along.
Israel's brutality in Gaza has emaciated Gaza's people, left many of them without limbs, left them unwashed, exhausted, hungry, and so utterly materially poor. The brutality was meant to disfigure and to dehumanize, to make ugly. At least 234. That's the number of journalists Israel has killed in Gaza since October 7, 2023. The journalist death toll tops the combined toll of journalist casualties in the US Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Yugoslav wars, the war in Afghanistan, and the ongoing war in Ukraine.
Our friends in Israel are surrounded by people who would kill them all if they could.
Talking about here, dude, huge Haaretz piece a couple months ago about, because we've seen so many examples of this, but they had IDF soldiers off the record, and at least one on the record, saying that they were given orders to fire live rounds into the crowds of desperate people trying to get food. It's biblical levels of evil.
American Jews, what do you have to worry about? Your job is to make us look good, and here's how you do it. You have got to serve 2 or 3 years in the army of words. Don't let the war of words ever be fought about Israel's nature. Israel's nature. Let it be fought about why you can't accept Israel, why you have to single out this tiny people. Try to find Israel on the map. It's hardly there. Are you going to really tell me that this is the country you want to blame? Push them, teach them how to defend by attacking.
The Israeli army enters this town just after Christmas. It's emptied of people, and they simply destroy it. And they record themselves doing it. They post before and after videos, and the town is entirely flattened.
Become addicted to explosions.
They're doing it, and they're recording it, and they're putting it on Facebook. And we know the names of the soldiers and the commanders who did it. They go into the homes of Palestinians, and they're often clearly staying there, and they just smash them up. And they film themselves smashing them up. An Israeli song called "This Was My Home." And what they would do is dress up as caricatures of obviously what they perceive Palestinians to be, being sung mockingly to people who no longer have homes. This is mainstream Israeli society. When people tell you who they are, believe them.
I am tired of the word genocide. Let me tell you about genocide.
Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. The group passed the resolution on Sunday.
Genocide. This is now coming from the leading association representing genocide scholars around the world, with more than 600 members from multiple countries around the world.
It's passed a resolution saying Israel's actions match the definition of genocide set out by the United Nations.
If Israel wanted to commit genocide, they could.
If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second. And I think most Israelis would.
They have the capability to do that. They choose not to.
They have assaulted every single one of the 36 hospitals in the Gaza Strip.
They have been deliberately killing healthcare workers. They have been deliberately abducting and detaining illegally and torturing healthcare workers.
We note that at least 41,000 children are at heightened risk of death from malnutrition between now and June 2026. This is a man-made crisis. The use of starvation as a weapon of war is clearly prohibited under international humanitarian law.
There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza.
And here's what the UN is saying today, that more than 62,000 tons of food staples are needed just to meet the bare minimum and cover basic needs. In March, Israel issued a total blockade, so no food aid entered Gaza. April, same thing. No food aid entered Gaza. In May, after 11 weeks of a total blockade, Israel says it let in some aid, just over 19,000 tons. And in June, just over 37,000 tons they say they let in. So from March all the way to June of this year, Israel let in less than a quarter of what the UN is saying is needed just to cover the most basic of needs.
Hamas, they would commit genocide in 30 seconds. They just can't.
Israel's campaign hasn't just targeted Gaza's people, it has targeted the information itself, making Gaza the deadliest place for reporters. To add insult to injury, Israel has systematically imposed media blackouts, cutting electricity and bombing telecom towers. The intent was clear: silence Gaza.
And that's the big difference, folks. To people in my party, I'm tired of this crap. Israel is our friend.
June 8th, 1967, during the Six-Day War, I called it the day that Israel attacked America. Israeli aircraft and torpedo boats attacked American Navy intelligence ship, the USS Liberty. So the USS Liberty was a spy ship. It was in the Mediterranean off the Egyptian coast. It was there to monitor the conflict. And then there was an unprovoked attack. Israeli jets and torpedo boats fired rockets, cannons, armor-piercing bullets. Bro, they even dropped napalm on this ship. And they even shot at life rafts, which is a really big no-no when it comes to war. The attack resulted in the deaths of 34 crew members and injuring over 171 soldiers.
Netanyahu here is mocking Bill Clinton, and he's mocking the American people, that he can do whatever he wants with us. This video, he is at a settler's house in the living room. He tells the boy, turn off the video camera, but the video keeps rolling.
80%.
We've got multiple cases of espionage by Israel have been uncovered, including surveillance of U.S. officials during negotiations or policy discussions. They spy on us. Nobody seems to hold them accountable for that. In 2010, reports emerged of Israel attempting to monitor White House communications during the Obama administration. So this isn't even many years past. This is even recent.
Friend. They're the most reliable friend we have in the Mideast. They're a democracy.
Back when Israel could lay claim to being a multinational democratic republic, AIPAC kind of trended toward the middle of the Israeli political spectrum. Now that Israel has become an overtly racially organized, theocratically driven right-wing government, AIPAC has generally fallen into line. They have a lot of money and a lot of resources at their disposal, has enormous influence in American elections. Both parties, Democrats as well as Republicans, are solidly behind Israel on this.
Surrounded by people who would cut their throats if they could.
Every time Israel massacres civilians, every time they burn children alive, they look around the world and they wait for the consequences, and none come from governments like Australia, and that's why they know they can get away with it.
Consecutive Israeli airstrikes on the Nasser hospital in South Gaza, captured and broadcast live on air. In a live broadcast of the second Israeli strike on the hospital, a direct targeting of civil defense rescuers and journalists on the top floor of the hospital.
Israel was created by terrorists.
Good. This is not a hard choice if you're an American.
As a Jewish person and as an American, I am horrified by the Israeli government's massacre of well over 65,000 Palestinians in Gaza. I am ashamed and infuriated that this mass murder is funded by our American tax dollars. Israel's actions are not in the name of Jewish safety, and it is the very conflation of Israel's actions with the Jewish people that continues to endanger Jews around the world. Never again is now. Never again for anyone.
We as Jews are embarrassed what's happening there in the state of Israel in the Jewish name.
They should know. We feel very shame what's going on there, especially they're doing everything in our name.
It's not a hard choice if you're a Christian.
How are Christians doing in the Holy Land?
And it's very difficult to practice their faith. It's sort of like you're in a gilded cage.
Priests with crucifixes around their necks getting spit on in Jerusalem.
A recent upsurge in spitting.
Christians in Jerusalem's Old City say they've been repeatedly assaulted, spit on,
spitting toward nuns.
Jewish men and children spitting.
Including children were filmed spitting on Christian worshipers. Recently, Israeli Channel 13 reporter Yossi Eli went undercover as a priest for a day. Dressed in a robe, he walked through the Old City with Franciscan Father Alberto. In the first 5 minutes, he was spat at 5 times.
Well, but that's the least of it.
And look at Gaza. Gaza is even closer to home for Orthodox Christians in many ways because it's the Holy Land. And to see this, forgive me, I'm showing way too many of my cards about this, but to see this Zionist state, irrationally in my mind allied with the United States of America, a Knesset that is full of the vast majority who think Jesus Christ was a false rabbi, properly executed for his blasphemy, and this is our chief ally? For what? For what? By Jewish soldiers who came to their homes where they had lived for untold generations. They came at noon with guns, and they said, we're coming back at 5. If you're here, we'll kill you. So they left.
What is the difference between being a Christian, between being a Jew, between being a Muslim?
Right. So Jews believe that Jesus was not the Messiah and was not a good prophet. He obviously wasn't God.
You know, the word Antichrist is in the Bible a couple of times. In 1 John, it talks about the person who says that Jesus Christ did not come in the flesh, he is Antichrist. So it's not the Antichrist, like it's one guy. It's the spirit, John talks about, of Antichrist. Anyone who says Christ did not come in the flesh.
Muslims believe that Jesus was a very good prophet, and they believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, lived a sinless life. Because he was such a good prophet, God would never allow him to die on a cross, so he took him to heaven. So the cross and the resurrection are wiped out. A devout Muslim believes that Jesus is going to return a second time. So they believe in Jesus as a good prophet.
No idea that Muslim religion believes in Jesus as a prophet.
Jesus is a very sacred prophet in Islam. So much so that when God sends his messenger back down when everyone is saved in the Quran, he does not send Muhammad. He sends Jesus back. How often have you heard that?
Never, literally never.
And I didn't know why until recently, to be honest with you. And now I know it was propaganda from Israel to get Americans to hate all Muslims, so that when Israel kills them and takes their land, you were going to say, well, I mean, what are you going to do? The Muslims are the difference.
A word of warning. If America pulls the plug on Israel, God will pull the plug on us.
We don't go to heaven by how much money we pay Israel and how many of Israel's wars that we fight and how many people are murdered as a result of it and how many children are starved and how many innocent people, whether Palestinian, Christian, or children, are blown to pieces while Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. That's not the way to heaven.
The Zionists had to convince the Jews that you are not what you think you are. You are not the Mamleches Kaihanim V'Goy Kodesh. You are not a people who are enjoined by God to fulfill this religion, these religious laws. You are a nation. You need a language. You need a flag. You need a country. Because Jews didn't share a language for 2,000 years. The Zionists set out to synthesize a new nationality. We're going to get the Jews a language. There was a Zionist language. Modern Hebrew was created by the Zionists before there was a state of Israel, because they wanted to supply the Jews with national characteristics, national symptoms, national equipment. That's what it is to us, a holy land. It's not a national homeland. This is the point that causes the problem. Jews were there when we had King David, when we had prophets, when we had a much higher level of fulfillment of Judaism than we do today. And Jewish identity in the army, it's ridiculous. The army is their church of Zionism. In the Talmud, there are sections that discuss morals and religion and theology. It's called Agoda. In modern Hebrew, that word means a fairy tale. You see what they did? Zionism is anti-Semitic. Zionism is anti-Jewish. And the solution, we have to get rid of Zionism.
And we're not going to let that happen. So I just want to end with this thought, that President Trump has stood with Israel at the most difficult time since its founding.
They asked Donald Trump at one point, they go, so is that it with Iran? Like, is the war continuing or is it over?
Or do those talks need to happen before you can?
Well, I would say that the best man to answer that is
the Prime Minister. But I will tell you that, in my view, I hope it's over.
Is your Palestinian relocation plan still on the table?
Maybe why don't I let you answer that question?
Do you think that there can be a two-state solution that creates an independent?
I don't know. I'd ask Bibi that question. You have the greatest man in the world to answer that.
Jeffrey Sachs, who I love.
I regard Netanyahu as having been our greatest disastrous president of the 21st century because he ran American foreign policy for 20 years and he cost us trillions.
October the 7th was an effort to destroy the state of Israel, the largest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust.
This thing that is so bad, it's the worst thing since the Holocaust. Israel has killed 60 times the number of civilians. So 60 events that are the worst since the Holocaust. I know, they don't affect Israelis. Does that count? Our media says, and our politicians like Lindsey Graham say, that doesn't count. They did it not once, not twice, not 3 times. Should I go all the way to 60? They've murdered more than 500 times the number of children that Hamas has murdered. So Hamas bad, Israel 500 times worse.
According to a female IDF soldier who spoke to Israel's Channel 12 news program, she was constantly trying to warn her superiors about the gravity of the Hamas training exercises. And she was threatened with legal action, saying, quote, "We were told that if we continue to harass on this issue, you will stand trial." So, Egypt knew, the Israeli military knew, and the Israeli civilians knew. And yet 2 days before October 7th, the Israeli military took 2 entire commando brigades, that's around 100 soldiers, away from the soon-to-be breached locations of the Gaza border and sent them to the other side of the country.
And here we are almost 2 years later, and Israel's the bad guy. That's ridiculous. Israel is not the bad guy. They're the good guy.
The Prime Minister wouldn't agree to it because, frankly, we had spent the last few months seeing the government of Israel at times try and sabotage an approach to get to a ceasefire. They were always looking for ways to add conditions or make the terms more difficult.
Will it be true to say that you wanted a deal, a hostage deal, more than Israel?
I believe that's true.
The bad guys are the radical Islamists.
New details have emerged. They show how he helped fund Hamas, how the Israeli Prime Minister helped Hamas get millions of dollars every year. This is the same group that he talks about destroying now, but for almost a decade, he secured millions of dollars for them. Suitcases full of cash, delivered to Gaza with Israeli security. The Mossad chief was in Qatar. His name is David Barnea. He was asked about the payments to Hamas. Did Israel want this payment to continue? And he said the answer was yes.
Who would kill everybody in this room if they could. And he stood up against wrong things.
October 7th. I don't like that they're killing children. Well, they hide them in hospitals and they hide innocent people. I am so sick of that ridiculous comment. So let me ask you this. When we have a shooter in a school or a hijacking situation, let's say there's terrorists in a school, do we bomb our children? Do we bomb the kids? What kind of sick mentality is that?
So I haven't lost my vision of right and wrong.
When are the Israelis supposed to defend themselves? How can they do that?
Well, wait a second, Mimi. Let me just turn it around and ask you something. You have lived in St. Paul, Minnesota for probably, let's say, 100 years. And all of a sudden, I show up on your doorstep, literally on your doorstep. And I say to you, Mimi, get out of this house. It's my house because my religion says it's my house. Now get out. Now, I happen to be standing on your doorstep with a gun pointed at your head, and I order you and your family out of your house. And I tell you that it's my house, not your house. And the reason it's my house and my block and my neighborhood is because my religious belief says it's mine. And you sit there and you say, well, no. What are you talking about? We've been here 100 years. I'm sorry. Get out, Mimi. So you leave. And the reason you leave is because you know if you don't, I'm going to blow up your house and probably blow up your family. So you leave and you move down the street. And for the next 60 years, you sit there and you get very, very angry because I came into your house and told you to get out. So What you do, Mimi, you decide, well, I know what I'll do. I'm going to start throwing rocks at what used to be my house, and it'll break the windows. That'll make that damn Malloy move. So you start throwing rocks. And then I come outside and I say, Mimi, were you throwing rocks? And you look at me rather sheepishly. And that's when I level an RPG at you and your family and your house. And I pull the trigger, and all of a sudden, whoosh, you're all gone. Now, which of us is the terrorist? You tell me.
When it comes to foreign policy, President Trump has stood up for all the right things.
The idea that it's just accepted as normal that the politicians for your country must worship this other country, and you're like, so what, did that other country like beat us in a war and they're occupying us now? And you're like, no, you're the superpower. They're your welfare country, you know? But yet you must go kiss their wall. You must say, Tammy Bruce from the State Department, where she goes, we're the greatest country in the world. Well, second greatest to Israel. And you're like, what?
Making things better for people. And in the greatest country on earth, next to Israel. Next to Israel.
That is a weird thing for any representative of your government to say.
The Israeli flag to be flown on all of its campuses.
The resolution would, among other things, display the Israeli flag at each school and facility.
We're infiltrated by this outside foreign Middle Eastern government that has been able to basically control nearly every aspect of our society here in the United States.
In August 2024, Sigali Sabag ran for the Beverly Hills Unified School District, backed by the Israeli American Civic Action Network.
Are the kids going to be asked to stand up every morning and do the Pledge of Allegiance to Israel from now on?
Palestine domain, but Netanyahu's idea since the mid-1990s, in combination with American neoconservatives, is that every other country of the Middle East that objects to that expansionist vision should be brought down by war or regime change. And Iran was always on the list all the way back to the 1990s. And Netanyahu's been begging, cajoling, and instigating what finally happened. We have a president who the ancient Greeks would have called acratic, meaning no self-control. Netanyahu goaded Trump to launch a war with Iran.
How much influence does Israel have on our country?
Israel's controlling our government.
Israel controls us.
Israel is in control of our government.
It feels like we're just owned by Israel, and we just never knew it.
Is the United States government now just taking edicts and orders from Israel?
Israel first.
Israel first.
Israel first.
This really is an Israel first administration.
Israel.
America first means we don't go to war on behalf of other countries.
Cut off aid to Israel.
I wouldn't send him a dime. This is my country.
Do you believe America's your country, or do you believe Israel's your country?
Israel's wars are not America's wars.
Israel is the only country I know of that has some sort of incredible control over nearly every single one of my colleagues. If you're an Israeli citizen, you have government-funded healthcare and you have government-funded college. If they're doing so great and they're funding healthcare and college, why is dead broke America?
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land. My first trip to Israel, my fourth trip to Israel, I would go to Israel.
Israel controls the United States, and I meant it. How are you going to argue otherwise? Okay, almost every single lawmaker on the left or right does the bidding of the Israeli government, either because they are legally bribed by AIPAC, or they're afraid that AIPAC is going to target them in some political campaign so they don't win re-election. I believe there's also a possibility of a blackmail operation. Yeah, I mean, we do anything and everything Israel wants. Why are the United States taxpayers tasked with paying for the bombs and the military of a foreign government when that foreign government had an economic surplus in 2021? The United States hasn't had an economic surplus since 2001. So yeah, our government is controlled by
Israel. Jewish lobby in Australia is a foreign influence operation. It's designed to put the interests of Israel above the interests of Australia and its foreign policy. And no one else has an operation as well funded. No other country has an operation with offices in every Australian capital city. No one else organises donations to attempt to elevate its influence in the way the Jewish lobby does in Australia. Now, this is simply a fact of life, and the model for the Jewish lobby is what happens in the United States.
The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice.
you have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest.